Out of all the horror remakes we've seen through the years, from Resident Evil 2 through 7 to Dead Space and the upcoming Silent Hill 2, Until Dawn felt like the least likely, and yet most deserving choice for the treatment. After all, it launched in 2015 for the PS4, and despite the utter lack of marketing, the sales exceeded Sony's expectations. It also put Supermassive Games on the map, though it would go on to develop the Dark Pictures anthology. Until Dawn has languished on the PS4 for all of these years and never received a remaster or a PS5 upgrade. Cue the upcoming release of, well, Until Dawn for the PS5 and PC on October 4th. It's a remake, rebuilt from the ground up for modern hardware and retailing for $59.99, offering new features, vastly improved visuals, and much more. Here are 15 things that you should know before picking it up. Developed by Ballistic Moon. While it's a ground-up remake of Supermassive Games' original title, the latter isn't involved in the remake. Instead, Ballistic Moon is leading development. Though this is their first project, the studio was founded by 3 developers who previously worked at Supermassive and on the original Until Dawn. Perhaps one can consider the studio participating in spirit for whatever that's worth. Reworked Prologue. While the rest of the story remains the same at its core, the prologue has seen some new additions and changes to enhance the emotional impact as per the developer. We'll see the Washington family spend more time together, while some other scenes have been reframed. There's even more context around the infamous incident leading to the game's events. Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5 was used to bring the Until Dawn remake to life, providing a massive jump in visual fidelity, details, and rendering. On top of texture and material improvements, it allows for more realistic fluids in real time, which means even more realistic blood splatters. With how prominent snow, and by extension water, is throughout the story, it's all the more interesting to see how these things will affect the characters. Visible injuries and updated character deaths. Another noteworthy improvement can be seen in the injuries suffered by the characters, resulting in more realistic bruises, cuts, and more. But the best part is that character deaths have also been updated. Whether they've undergone significant changes or look better or more grotesque depending on your level of squeamishness due to all of the new systems remains to be seen. Improved facial and body animations. Overall, character models have seen some hefty upgrades and appear far more realistic and detailed. They're also more expressive and natural in terms of animations when compared to the original game, whether it's their gestures or more nuanced body language. New third-person camera. Certain scenes benefit from cinematography changes, which look drastically better. However, the biggest change on this front is a third-person camera, adding a whole new perspective to events while allowing for closer storytelling. The original's fixed camera angles, which channeled the old-school survival horror titles of yore, are still present. However, you'll just have to get used to seeing them alongside the new point of view. New hunger totems. In the original game, players could discover collectibles called Totems. Divided into 5 colors, these signified different events that may occur, like playable character deaths, choices, brighter outcomes, and even dangerous situations. However, the remake adds a 6th totem to the equation known as hunger. What these entail is unknown, but they'll provide another reason to travel off of the beaten path. New locations for original totems. Don't think you can just waltz in and collect all of the other totems easily. The locations of the existing 30 totems have changed for this remake. It may seem tedious for experienced players, but at least there's some excitement in not knowing their whereabouts and thoroughly exploring environments to go ahead and find them. New areas and interactions. While you're unlikely to come across fresh, sprawling environments, Ballistic Moon has touted small new areas to discover. You can experience new interactions, and while it may seem like a small touch, they'll provide extra context and detail to the world while rewarding exploration. If you've ever wanted an expansion on the lore behind some locations, then this is good news. New score and overhauled sound. Sound design and music are key elements of any cinematic horror experience. To further immerse players in its terrifying atmosphere, Until Dawn's remake sports an overhaul to its sound and new score, courtesy of composer Mark Corvin. The latter may be familiar to those who watched classics like The Lighthouse, The Witch, and many more, which means we're in for a treat as far as the soundtrack goes. PC features. By now, PC players will be accustomed to features included with PlayStation Studios ports. Until Dawn is no exception, packing support for NVIDIA DLSS 3.7 and AMD FSR 3.1. It also supports an unlocked frame rate and the DualSense controller, though other devices and Steam inputs are also viable. Ultra-wide monitors with a 21:9 aspect ratio are also supported, though the PC version also supports 16:9, a cinematic 23.9:1 ratio, and even a free aspect ratio for even more customization. PC requirements. Until Dawn can be a heavy title to run on PC, depending on the quality that you're after. Windows 10 or 11 and 70 GB of installation space on a solid-state drive are required right out of the gate. To achieve the bare minimum of 720p 30 FPS on low settings, you need a Core i7 4790K or a Ryzen 5 1500X, 8 GB of RAM, and a GeForce GTX 1660, Radeon RX 470 or equivalent card with 6 GB VRAM. To play at 1080p 60 FPS on medium settings, a Core i5 8600 or Ryzen 7 2700X, 16 GB RAM, and a GeForce RTX 2060 or Radeon RX 6600 XT are necessary. From this point on, you need an NVMe SSD. Gameplay at 1440p 60 FPS or 4K 30 FPS on high settings demand a Core i5 8600 or Ryzen 7 2700X, 16 GB of RAM, and a GeForce RTX 3080 or Radeon RX 6800 XT. Finally, for the coveted 4K 60 FPS at very high settings, you must have a Core i7 11700K or Ryzen 7 5800 X3D, 16 GB RAM, and a GeForce RTX 3080 Ti or Radeon RX 6900 XT. Ray tracing. If you want an even spookier experience, ray tracing is available for shadows, ambient occlusions, and reflections. The problem is that Ballistic Moon hasn't outlined the hardware necessary to use it on PC. Based on the limited footage thus far, however, you can't deny how much better the lighting and the shadows look. New accessibility options and stay calm. Ballistic Moon confirmed new accessibility and usability settings for the remake, though it didn't detail them. However, it did outline an alternative for Don't Move, the mechanic where players must not move the controller to affect some outcomes. It's called Stay Calm and targets those with third-party peripherals lacking a gyroscope. Mandatory PSN account on PC. Unfortunately, just like previous PlayStation games, Until Dawn requires a PlayStation Network account to play on PC, even though it's a single-player title. Given that it's also mandatory in forthcoming titles like Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and LEGO Horizon Adventures, it's unlikely that Sony will remove it anytime soon. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Bolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.